Welcome to the On Assignment podcast, brought to you by Mobilize Man, where our mission is to equip and mobilize men as kingdom assets. And kingdom assets are men who actively and intentionally pursue God's assignment on their life. And I'm here today with my co-host, Will. Will, how you doing?
Good, John. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be here. And we have a special guest with us today, and I'm excited to introduce my good friend and great leader, Sabrina Valdez. Sabrina, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, we're happy to have you in studio with us today. And we are going to be talking today about an issue that's very important for men who live their lives on assignment. And that is understanding how you're wired and the way that acts with your leadership, the way that interfaces with your leadership. Because sometimes when we don't understand who we are and how we're wired, we don't have insight into the very way that God has made us in such a way to lead in a specific way. Mm-hmm. And so when we understand more of how we're wired, it allows us to tap into our strengths, our abilities, right, and allows us to become more effective in our leadership as we're really able to understand, oh, well, that's why I do certain things a certain way. And that's why I interact well with certain people and have a harder time with other people. And so there's this insight that is extremely valuable for us as leaders that we're going to talk with Sabrina about today. And so I want to introduce her real quickly. Sabrina has been a friend of my wife and I's now for a couple of years, and it's been great to get to know her. And as I've gotten to know her more and more, I've seen that she is an excellent leader and an excellent communicator. And part of the reason for that is because she's actually a leadership coach, and she is the founder of SV Leadership Solutions, and she does coaching and different classes and courses, including a master class on leadership. And so I thought it'd be an excellent opportunity for us to have her in studio today with us. And so Sabrina, why don't you tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into the leadership world and began coaching?
Definitely. So I grew up in Moses Lake, Washington. People don't most of the time know where that place is. And so I always have to tell them it's a smaller place.
Right.
Not as small as Corbett, but definitely a smaller place. And so I grew up in a Hispanic household. I had very traditional rules of do's and don'ts from my parents. And I grew up always on a basketball team or a softball team or a volleyball team of saying, hey, Sabrina, why don't you just go ahead and take the lead on that? And I'm like, okay, I'll definitely do it. And I remember even my PE teacher, I still remember her name because I love her. And she's still teaching, Ms. Wow. Gardner. And she's very bubbly, outgoing. And she's, hey, Sabrina, would you take the whole class and do the warm up with them? I'm like, yes, I love it. And I did it. And then even going into getting one of my first jobs, and most people don't know where this place is. It's called Taco Time. It's a healthier version of Taco Bell.
Yeah,
so that's all I can say.
Yeah. Taco Time.
And the manager and owner, every time they would have a staff meeting, mind you, I'm in high school, and they're like, hey, Sabrina, can you just join us? I would really love your input. I'm like,
wow.
Okay. I'm like, are you sure I'm not one of the managers? And they're like, no, you'd be great input. Always leading up to, even in college, same thing. I was surrounded by other leaders, and I'm the youngest one. They're like, hey, Sabrina, we would love to have your input. And I would always wonder, like, why am I in these situations? Mm-hmm. And come to find out, because they saw something in me that I didn't necessarily labeled, and nor did I have a title for, but it was because I carried influence.
Right.
And they said, you have leadership potential on you, and we want you to be a part of it. So that really didn't get my attention, though, until my 20s, because I was still under the myth. I can't be a title. I cannot be a leader unless I have a title.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I have to be in charge of something. Yeah. I have to have the title that says leader something, or manager, or director, or whatever it may be. That was my mindset. And so And I figured everybody else was just followers and I'm just one of the followers.
Mm.
And so it wasn't until I got into an actual place called Panera Bread in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, and I read a book by John Maxwell called The 360-Degree Leader.
Okay.
When I read that, it was like a revelation light bulb went off. And I'm in my 20s. By this time, I'm in my 20s. And it gave me a revelation of anybody can be a leader, regardless of their not having a title. And when I read that, I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. And then it made me realize all these other situations growing up all the way through, whether it was in my work to even in church, becoming one of the leaders. They would say, hey, I want you to take this on. I made me realize I did not have the main title, but I was still leading because of carried influence. And so that made my mindset literally change my perspective on leadership, that I could lead wherever I'm at. I do not have to be at the top. I can be in the middle or I can be underneath people. Wherever I am, I'm leading. So no matter where you find yourself, even if in the corporate world to wherever it may be, you can still lead regardless of the title or non-title. And so that really what got me into leadership was in my 20s. And then from there, I'm sure we're going to talk about it even more today.
I feel like that even for myself, like looking back, even as a kid, you telling your stories about how your coaches responded to you and your leadership on the team and how your taco time employer, you know, I had the same effect. I from the time I was a kid, I was wired as a pastor or as a shepherd or someone who cares for other people. And it was clearly evident in my life from the time I was a kid. And so you saw it on the playground to the job sites, whenever, but even though it wasn't necessarily a specific label or something that was, I was operating in at a positional level, it was just naturally flowing out of me.
Yeah.
So, and Will, I know that you're the same way, right? What have been some of the things that you've seen since you were a kid in your life? Have you, that you've seen kind of as evidence of the way you're wired?
I think, yeah, very similar. I would say from a young age, I kind of in my family, like my dad would go out of town quite a bit. He was a truck driver. And so he'd give us little tasks to do while he was gone. And one day, my brother's 5 years older than me. I believe I was like 3, maybe 4. My brother was 8 or 9. He was tasked with mowing the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I go out there and he is just not able to start this thing, pulling on it, won't start. And I was like 3. I was like, well, is there gas in the tank? And he was like, no, I guess I didn't check that. And he checked it. It was out of gas. And so, like, kind of ever since a young age, I've been like wanting to help and kind of, I feel like one step, like I had something in me to want to help people and also like an understanding of kind of what needed to get done from like a really young age.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of known through my family and I kind of carried that through my childhood, but also just like sports, part of sports teams. I was the catcher in baseball, which is the leader of the defense for baseball. And so you're like the team captain.
Yeah.
And so, and I was a catcher growing up from 8 years old all the way through high school. And so I was constantly put in that position of that pressure. And it's really good. It's really good. But yeah, just constantly put into those positions. And then now I would say I'm not a captain. In fire service and jobs in general, there's a chain of command. And anywhere you find yourself in that chain of command, you can step into a leadership position. So when you first start, you're like, I'm not a captain, I'm just a firefighter. But no, someone needs to help that captain train up those new guys. And you as a firefighter, you're the next one in that chain of command to have direct communication to help your captain not bear that burden of having to train the new guy.
Yeah.
No, you're equipped. You can step up, train the new guy. So I think stepping into those leadership positions, I've kind of found my way growing up.
And I feel like that understanding how you naturally lead and what naturally flows out of you is really important, because, our natural strengths can actually either be directed correctly or misdirected.
Correct.
And sometimes we can operate in a way to where we're super strong in an area, but we don't understand the fact that that strength is being misdirected.
Correct.
And it's actually becoming a problem, and it's not helping our leadership, but it's actually hurting our leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that having an awareness of how we are wired can help us say, okay, I need to make sure that my strengths and the way that my personality is, that I'm using that in a way to where I'm actually helping my leadership and not hurting my leadership.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we recently had some, we're raising pigs, right? And this is a little excerpt from the saga of John Harvey's life here. I became a pig rancher,
True stories.
pig farmer, for a little bit. And we recently had a bunch of our pigs put down so that they could be made into bacon, which is absolutely a vital part of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so the guy we had come and put the hogs down and get them ready to process, called him up. I hadn't worked with him before. And so he's like, his text messages were like all 2 words or less. Everyone, it's like, hey, what time do you think we'll get started whenever on the date you're going to be here? Roughly 6. That was his response. Roughly 6, and it was like, all like 1 or 2 word, like yes, no, whatever. And so no fluff at all in this guy. And so he shows up right when he says 6 a.m. He pulls up in this old beater truck and this trailer, which it was like a mobile slaughterhouse, basically. And he's got an assistant with him. And he's one of those guys where you first meet him and you shake his hand, and it's like his hand just engulfs your hand. And it's like, okay, Mr. Bear Paw, let's go. He's got like this massive hand and just a big bear of a guy in general. And you could tell immediately that he was just a pro. Like,
Yeah.
he was able to assess the location and immediately began to put things into place. And I was there to help run the tractor because we had a tractor on site. And so he immediately said, hey, this is where I want you. And I'm getting the tractor ready. And all of a sudden I start hearing the gunshots and the pig squeal. And the next thing you know, we've got pigs ready to process. And it was great because I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, man, this guy is like super adept and professional and knows exactly what he's doing. And he's a big, strong guy. He's got great command presence, as far as like how he could be as a leader. And because I'm watching men and seeing how they lead, because it's like I want to gather and glean from their leadership.
Right.
And so I'm working with the tractor and I'm getting the pigs positioned for them to be able to get them processed. They skin them out and do all that stuff. And his assistant is there, and I'm watching him interact with his assistant. And it didn't take 5 minutes into the process for this guy that was leading the show to just start yelling at his apprentice and just, basically very disrespectfully telling his apprentice that he was no good, helper, that he didn't know what he was doing, and he was basically an idiot. And he did it right in front of me. It had no problem, wasn't trying to lower his voice, or he was just out with it. And you could just see his helper just kind of throughout the course of the time, just slowly just being like, all right, I'm tired of this guy yelling at me. But he had zero communication with his helper other than do this or you're not doing it right and you're an idiot. And it was very vocal and very outspoken. And I tell this story because I'm like, this guy's leadership potential was way up here. Mm-hmm. Like he could have been such an amazing leader. And he very much had a very strong, excellent personality for leadership. Mm-hmm. But the way that he was wired was being so misdirected in the way he was handling the people around him that it was actually very much hurting his leadership.
Yeah.
And I was like, what could this guy's life have been like if he had learned how he was wired and how to handle that properly? And so, Sabrina, with your understanding of leadership and the way people are wired, what are some of the things, some of the factors that could have been at play in this guy's life that shaped him into who he had become, and who that each of us can learn from? Like, what are the things that shape our leadership and our personalities? And then how can we understand how to point those in the right direction instead of the wrong direction, like my friend that I met the other day with the pigs?
That's a great story, John. And even how you were defining and explaining how you first met him to the point where then how he was directing. I was able to, even just by your conversation, I thought, man, he has a DC. And so for some of you thinking, what's a DC?
Yeah.
I'll get into that in a second, but it made me realize, okay, this is the type of personality style that he operates in. But one of the things that, as part of my coaching, I learned and became a DISC consultant. And that's what DISC is being direct, influence, steady, and conscientious. That's what you'll hear me say. But before we get into even that, there's 3 ways, and this isn't anything new under the sun. This is by 1928, and this is back in the 400s, but by 1928, there was a gentleman by the name of William Martson who developed this amazing content called the DISC to be able to understand it more easier for me. I would say even just for me, myself, and for other individuals.
Did you say 1928?
1928.
Oh, wow.
He came.
That's been around a while.
But yeah, no, but when this originally came out, even knowing the DISC styles before it was labeled DISC, it was called other things back in 444 BC.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So this is old.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't anything new under the sun.
Yeah.
It's just been redefined. How does it make it easier? How it makes it more applicable for us to understand? And so I love William Martson's framework.
Yeah.
And it's easy, and I'm hoping it's so easy that you're going to be able to walk away with some tips by the end of this podcast and saying, hey, how can I become a better communicator? So to go back to the tendencies, how we're wired starts from a young age, literally all the way to pretty much when you're birth. It's your hereditary. It's based on 3 things. It's your hereditary, your role models, and your environment.
Okay.
That's literally what cultivates your behavioral, and it's called your behavioral tendencies.
Okay.
So out of the 3, one of them you cannot change.
Right. Yeah.
It's what you're born with. You're either male or female.
Your genetics.
Exactly. You're going to be either Hispanic, Caucasian, African American, or whatever it may be. That's it. But the other 2, you're able to change. But as you grow up, for example, your environment, you don't get to change that when you're young. It's wherever your parents or your guardians or wherever you're at, you just sort of have to, sounds horrible when I say this, put up with it, depending if it's not a good situation.
Right.
The other one is your role models. I think of some of my role models in school, and I think of them as friends, and some of them not so good of a role model, but they were still influencing me. And I was doing decisions and making decisions based on, well, they're doing it, I'm going to do it. Right. And so again, throughout life, as you get older, you're able to change. Out of the 3, you can change 2. You change your role models, hopefully for the better. Some of us takes a little bit longer. Your environment, eventually, Lord willing, get out of your parents' home. Go to either college. You get into, those type of environments, to your own apartment, to your own home, or straight to your own home, even to the places that you work. I talked about Taco Time. Then I became an executive pastor later, years down the road, to what I'm doing even now, working for a nonprofit organization. All of my environments have changed. I've lived in Washington, Cincinnati, Ohio, Phoenix, Arizona. Now I'm in Corbett, Oregon. All of that is still changing, meaning my behavioral styles will begin to change depending on what I am doing.
Right.
So before anybody gets stuck, and they're thinking, when I talked about the DC, I just want you to know we operate in all of them. And you're going to hear me say that. And this other thing, people are different, but they are predictably different.
Okay.
So if I was to even ask John and Will, people are different. They're predictably different. If I talk to them about their wives, they're different. But you very well know Sydney and Brenda's reaction is going to be this if I do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know their reaction, and
Right.
because you've been around them that many times.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, it's very easy to identify and pick up other people's behavioral styles just by being around them, even for a few minutes. You begin to pick up on these tips, and I'll be able to share that. But just want you to at least share where our behavioral tendencies started, even from a young age. Again, it's from your hereditary, your environment, and your role
That's
models.
really good.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah, that makes me so I think a lot of people don't recognize that they can see those styles in other people. And so like I guess with my wife, like, yeah, it's predictable, but if you don't pay attention
Correct.
to their style, then it's still unpredictable. So I think you kind of have, I don't want to call it a cheat code, but in
Yes.
communication, that's a cheat code where you
Yeah.
can turn a situation that's unpredictable into a predictable one just by paying attention.
Correct.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So what are those things that you should be paying attention to help you clue in on someone's style?
So I talked about DISC, and really most people fall under these 4 categories. Now we
What
call
are they again? What are the
so
4
I'm going to go
categories
to
again?
the 4 categories is D for direct, I for influence, S for steady, C for conscientious.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, again, we operate, including myself and even the gentleman and everybody that's listening, you operate in all 4.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to, in an everyday work style or everyday how you live, you're going to be predominantly more in like 1 or 2 of these areas. So before I even talk about the blended style, like myself, I'm a DI. I'm considered a concluder. So I am direct, but I love to also be social. But my predominantly behavioral tendency is being more on the D side. So I love projects. So going back to your question, Will, for example, we're going to talk about ours right now. Even by just being with you, I can sense what style you are because I've the cheat code, like
Oh, yeah.
like Will's saying.
Yeah.
I'm picking up on this because I'm purposely wanting to become better by talking to people. Not the way I want to talk to them, but by the way they prefer I talk to them without them telling me.
Yeah.
So you're sensing. So as you're talking with someone, you're trying to. You're trying to basically clue into how they're wired, essentially, and how they operate, so that you know how best to approach them in a way to where that interaction is going to be valuable or
Correct.
that interaction is going to be solid.
And this is some of your tips of how you can pick up on these type of characteristics from these 4 different types of individual tendencies or
Wow.
behavior styles. Okay.
See,
So I'm going to
that's
just
good.
give you a few tips
Yeah.
on how you can identify these characteristics and then sort of just box them in, okay, in your head. Now, you may have to listen to this. Did I get this in an hour or in a day? Absolutely not. Do I still fail on this? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wish I was a professional that I didn't mess up. I still have to work at this, but I purposely want to become better. And I would think even for men that are listening, you want to become better.
Sure.
That's why you're on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the characteristics that if you to identify a D person, the first characteristics is they're direct.
Yeah.
They love the challenge. They actually thrive in opposition. They're like, yes, I got some solutions to help fix this. They're quick to take the driver's seat. They love results. They are excited to say, hey, for example, like if you were a D, John, they would say, hey, John, take the lead on this and do it how this is the outcome I want. I just need you to get it done. You would be excited. D's would be excited for that. They didn't get the details. They just said, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to get this job done. So those are D people that you're going to see. Again, as tips for identifying who is those direct people. You might think, well, man, they just are delegators. Well, that is a characteristic of them as well. Okay.
So now, they're not afraid to tell someone, hey, you need to do this. They're very direct and being like, hey.
They are going to be more direct. Okay. They are going to confront people. Now, how that, again, that's probably a conversation a little bit later. We're going to talk about how to better communicate, even if you are direct, like myself.
Okay. Right.
I cannot just come across the way I want to come across. I have to come across the way John's going to receive it as a C person.
See, that's
okay,
so
and so
good.
I got
so important.
And then
how many years did I just lead obtusely, just kind of like it wasn't ever worried about the receiving end. It was just kind of like, hey, no, you need to do that.
Well, and all of us do without this cheat code.
Yeah, no kidding, right? This is so
and
good.
I do have a cheat code. As you keep saying that, well, I actually give people these cheat codes.
Okay.
So maybe you'll be the first ones to receive that.
There we go.
Your wives are going to be thankful.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
and your children.
Yeah, it's great. Okay.
But like yourself, John, you just said, man, how many times did I do that? And I constantly would, because again, I'm a D. I'm thinking, why is this person asking me 50 questions? I just told them what to do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's going on here?
Well,
what I failed to realize until a few years ago is, they're a C person. If they're not asking questions, they're afraid that they're not going to get it done properly. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but it just goes back to thinking they weren't questioning my authority. They were questioning to get their job assignment done better.
Yeah.
And
because they want to do it correctly.
Again, a light bulb moment. I'm like, man, so sorry about that. And I apologize.
Because
all these years later.
That's leadership, is understanding the people that you're with, and good leadership understands how to address that person, not based upon who you are as a leader, but how they are.
Yes.
That's what the Lakers coach and the Chicago Bulls coach.
I see his face, but I cannot think his name.
Man, I'm
Phil
Jackson. Yeah, Phil Jackson. Yeah. So he was a leadership guru, because he would take his players and identify each one of his players and how they were wired, and he would lead each of them differently. Okay. He would motivate them differently. He would inspire them differently. He would correct them differently. But he knew that it wasn't just about his presence as a coach. It was about how he addressed each one of the players and the way they were wired. So this is totally making sense to me as I'm hearing this.
And you're
so
not
good.
Changing yourself. You're just adapting yourself. So before people thinking, oh my gosh, I got to be a whole different.
And you're paying attention.
Fake. You're being real, and you're being really more respectful and honorable to the person that you're talking to. And they're actually going to receive it better when you actually learn that.
Good. Yeah.
So even from, again, those are the D characteristics. Okay. That's just the D. We just covered one. And then we get the I. You're going to identify I people because they're the most bubbly people that you're around. Like, they come into the party, they got the stories, they got, I think of an I, and you've already seen her on here, Brenda. Brenda is huge I for me. I mean, she doesn't necessarily, when I say the spotlight, she can take the spotlight just by telling stories and how detailed and funny and interactive. I mean, I'm like listening and I'm like, okay, what else happened? What else happened? Like, I get pulled into her stories all the time. So those are those individuals that are I's. Like, they're pretty easy to identify. Then you got the S people. These are people that are more steady. They are literally the backbone of every pretty much family organization. I failed to mention this, but I'll mention it now. 69% of the population are S people.
Okay.
Okay. They are good listeners. They're team players. I mean, they want, when I say team players, they don't want to leave anybody out. D people, they're like, you know what? They're done. Like, just put them on the bench. Let's just keep it going, right? Like, we're wasting time. Win. Like, results are kicking, or time is ticking.
Yeah,
that's good.
S is like, we have all day. I'm like, oh, Father, help me.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a second about how D and S's have to work. I have to work extra hard to make sure I'm on the same page with S's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we get the C people, the conscientious people, the compliant people, the people that love to be correct. and they make up 17% of the population.
Okay.
And these individuals love data. They don't want opinion. Personal opinion is out the door. Give me facts and truths. Give me where you got it from. Give me statistics. Give me even spreadsheets. Give me an article. And so if you give opinion, they're not really listening. They're like,
Okay.
now is not the time for your personal opinion unless it's your heart we're talking about. But anything else, it better be labeled to that. They ask a lot of questions. And so that's how you identify some of these different 4 categories, really, of where people literally land in. Now, again, like I mentioned before, some people can be 2 of them.
Right.
I'm 2. I'm a DI. Based on even just sitting with John, I believe John's a CD. Based on even sitting with Will, I know he's an S for sure. And then I feel like the C part. So it'd be intriguing. I don't, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. So even I want to make sure to debunk this. People think that you have to be a D to lead every organization or nonprofit or CEO or manager. That is a myth. That is a lie. I'm going to debunk that.
Yeah.
Because Mobilize Men is led by a C and an S right now. Do they operate in the D? Absolutely. But what is their primary forefront? What they use is the conscientiousness and the steady.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's a huge part of this as well, because I know that there was a point in time in my life when I was in my early 20s. In fact, it was right around that time when I moved from Missouri out to Oregon, where it was like I was wrestling with the way that my personality and the way that I was, because the people that I wanted to be like weren't like me.
Yeah.
I wanted to be someone who was like the role models that I really looked up to, and when I would look at myself, I was like, man, I don't live up to the type of person that I really want to be. And I was trying to actually I was hoping to shape my personality differently and be someone different, when in fact, when you're operating in the way that you're naturally bent, that's when you're at your best.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's when other people are like, man, I wish I could be like that person.
Yeah.
And so rather than trying to become someone with a different personality, I learned that, man, if I embrace who I am and I operate effectively in who I am, and I really try and focus on developing my strengths and not becoming someone I'm not, I'm going to actually become a much more effective and influential leader when I'm really operating at 100% the way that I am. And, we get a good picture of this in scripture when it was like David's going to go and take on Goliath. And so the first thing that, they try and do is they try and put Saul's armor on him.
Yeah.
And this wasn't necessarily, talking towards how you were wired or your personality, but it was like trying to say, hey, we're going to try and ask David to operate not how he would naturally operate in the way he was trained with the sling and the stone, but we're going to try and put Saul's armor on him. And so they put Saul's armor on him, and he's like, well, everything makes sense here. The armor, the weapons, those are all things that a warrior would operate within typically, but that's not how David operated.
Right.
And so if David had gone out with Saul's armor and Saul's sword and spear, things could have turned out much differently for David.
Yeah.
But instead, David went out how he was. People were like, this doesn't make sense. This guy's not equipped. He's going to get crushed. But he went out the way that God made him to be, and the way that he had been trained. And he was able to do what became the most legendary battle in history, David and Goliath. He was able to take down the giant. Right. And so I find that if you're a listener out there and you're like, man, I just don't like the way that I am, well, okay, understand that who you are is in fact exactly the way God intended you to be. And so instead of framing it like I need to change who I am, frame it like I want to continue to improve and become the very best
Yes.
person that God made me
Correct.
to be.
Yep.
I want to be the best John Harvey there is.
Correct.
I don't want to be Will Derlick, or I don't want to be Sabrina. I want to be the best John Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so are there things that I can grow in and emulate, you know, that maybe my favorite action hero on TV, you know, is like, cool. Yeah. Okay. Maybe, but don't let that undermine the way that God made you.
Correct.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you make a real good point, and I just want to interject. I thought I needed to make everybody's like me. So I'm like, man, if you just learn a little bit more like me, we're going to get more done.
Yep.
But what I fail to do then is, if they're all like me, we're not going to get anything done.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I begin to appreciate, and I said it for the other two. There's only 3% of the populations that operate as a D. They're more direct. There's 11% within the I's. So people have asked, okay, what is the most popular or best personality style? Yours is.
Right.
Because we're all needed. Everybody brings something different to the table, and that's what we need to get the job done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We cannot have all just directors, and then nobody wants to get the job done as far as the work crew. Like, okay, then go get it done. And they're like, no, you get it done. We got too many chiefs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So everybody's style is needed. And again, like even John was saying, it's not to change you, it's to better you. How do
Yeah.
we become better in the position that you're in?
Yeah. That's good. So being able to start the process of looking at your own life and assessing how you naturally lead and operate, then a person then can begin to identify, okay, am I a direct person? Am I an SSC? And as well as having conversations with the people who are close to you, you know, being like, hey, how do you view my personality? How do you view my leadership? How do I naturally operate? Beginning to this process of discovery, though, I think is important. I wish I'd learned this stuff back in the 20s when I was wrestling with these things, because I didn't ever really come to a clear conclusion on that until I learned about this in my 40s. So, is there obviously you can take a course on what they call disc training, right? So disc training is one way to find out about these things. Are there other ways as well that you would recommend for people to begin to look at and evaluate and assess their own lives in a way to where they can figure themselves out?
So what John, we are referring to as the DISC assessment. And so I always say at the assessment, people think it's a DISC test. You can't get this test wrong because you're answering about yourself.
Yeah.
So there is no test.
Not a
It
pass or
tests-
fail.
Yes. No, there is no failure.
Shoot, I failed again.
It's an assessment. And I personally like DISC. Now there is other things like them.
Okay.
But this is the most simplified one.
Okay.
I even like it. Again, I became certified through the John Maxwell as a leadership coach. And so we offer, even our DISC assessment is tweaked by John Maxwell. So it's actually a little bit different. Not only is it gives you a 30-page report about yourself, learning about others around you, and then gives you some task of how to become better, because
Okay.
then there's a personal development action plan in the back.
Okay.
And so what people will do, like, for example, if you take the assessment, great. I'm going to say, good job on that. That's one step ahead. To become better, you actually then need to go in with somebody like myself, because you become accountable. Something happens when you're accountable.
Yeah.
You're more challenged to getting and actually achieving the goals you actually want. And so when you go through, per se, this specific one that I'm talking about, is that there's an action plan that you're actually going to say, okay, I'm going to nail this and become better about myself. And so not only those, though, John, because I do believe in the practical, which is the DISC assessment, but then there's also the spiritual. So there's actually spiritual assessments about your giftings and why you're gifted in those areas. For example, if you're in the church world, operating as a prophet or a evangelist or a teacher, or you have a lot of mercy on you, right? Those are all different gifts, and we can go into that. But it's essential when you even look at those gifts and talents, it actually matches up with your personality style, your behavioral style. Then you're thinking, oh, no wonder I'm so like that.
Yeah.
And so there's strength finders. That's another practical one that I have yet to still take. I've read the book, but I actually need to figure out what are my actual strengths.
Right.
And it goes back to this, John. We have a good friend, and everybody knows her here, and her name's Shauna Danberg, and she is an exceptional leader and teaches strength finders. And I remember talking to Shauna. I said, Shauna, if you understand strengths, which is so good, and you said it earlier, but if you don't know how to use your strengths, you're going to run people over. But could you imagine if you learn your strengths, but then also learn how to communicate that, how much a powerful person you become?
Yeah.
And she didn't fully understand that until I did an intensive with them at the leadership intensive with them at the church, that she's like, Sabrina, it's all making sense. And I was like, yeah, she understands what I'm saying. So it does go back to learning those strengths and operating it in a good, healthy way versus just being direct and getting to the point. I'm running people over because I'm the boss and just get it done. Then I've just lost maybe some of my employees. I lost some trust. I lost a lot.
Yeah.
If I'm like that.
Yeah.
But if I know how to operate in it and saying, hey, John, I think you may be able to do this task. Let me know. What do you think? It's getting this, and done. And it seems like you might, the more facts and figures and all of that I'm giving John's like, okay, I think I got it.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Right.
But I said, John, just get it done. Figure it out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is where putting the work in to, it's easy to operate how you operate without taking into account how people receive it. It takes time to learn your people, the people that are around you, learn how they operate. And I mean, that's what we're all about, is growing here. And so taking the time, putting in the work to understand your people, your team is just going to be, your team's going to be rock stars if you all understand how each other operate and how you can communicate for people to receive that. For me, I just want to touch on this before we move on, because it was kind of hit on. There is an extreme tension between S and D, I feel like, from both, because you said as a D person, an S person's hard to manage. And I feel like if I'm in a leadership position and I'm leading a D person, that's the one that raises my heart rate a little bit, because that's like, for me, there's just tension there between those two, of an S person trying to lead a D person. It's kind of a big task to ask, I feel like, personally.
Okay.
As an S person.
No, that's good.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What is that I'm feeling?
Okay. And I'm going to get to that. You talked about a team, right? And I want to say this much. Your first team should be your family team.
Yeah.
Because if don't get to the point where, okay, oh my gosh, I got to learn every employee or every friend. Start at home. Learn what are those your siblings or your parents or your wife or even your children. Like, begin to like identify, work with that, then go out.
Yeah.
So don't try to master every single one, because you're not going to. Try to master one at a time. For example, you're saying the D. How do I sort of master that? And there's some good tension on that. Okay. Because you're saying the D and I'm thinking, okay, there's a little tension on the S. Am I going to hurt their feelings? How am I, so the same type of thing, it's just differently wired.
Yeah.
So when you think of a D, just to give you tips on this, and if you're leading a D, you must be doing something exceptionally well, because they're underneath you. So they're liking you. They bought into you. Okay. So then how you lead them, per se, here's that cheat sheet that I'm talking about. It's all in the cheat sheet. Just be direct with them. Don't beat around the bush. The more you beat around the bush, they're just like, just get to the point. Well, just what do you want me to do? And you may think like, gosh, I just feel like I'm just giving them tasks. They actually like tasks when it's in their real work.
Yeah.
Now, if you're giving them a task that has to do with personally like computers and they don't like computers, you just set them up for failure. But if you're giving them a task in their actual area as a D person, they're going to skyrocket because you're empowering them. So the more freedom that they sort of have in their area, because you trust them, they're going to get the job done and excited to come and show you, hey, I got this job done. What else do you want me to do next?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
true.
you just got to give them, again, be quick, be to the point, don't ramble.
Yeah.
D's don't prefer actually rambling. If you're talking to a D, they don't want you to ramble.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm talking to an S, I'm stopping my mindset and I'm saying, hey, Will, how was your day today?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to just go right into the project personally, but I have to hold myself.
That's good.
Does that make sense?
That's really good.
Okay.
Yeah. For like the fire service, I'm always going to have, there's just a chain of command, there's a seniority. So you're getting people of all different styles coming underneath you. And so you're tasked with leading those people. And so, yeah, I get all whatever style coming underneath me. And you do have to adjust your way of leading those people.
Yeah.
And it is the direct confrontational ones that are the most, I think you just have to be intentional, like what you're saying, direct, which makes sense because they're direct people, and not ramble on, but it makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because I feel like that without this understanding, you could actually lead through a filter of, oh, this person just doesn't like me.
Correct.
They don't,
and it's
they
not
don't,
true.
They don't care about me. They don't like me. And especially like on these wilderness intensives that I work on, you're meeting a brand new group of people, and then you're taking them into the wilderness for a 7-day, very challenging transformational experience. And I found that there's certain personalities that come that are super easy to interact with, and there's others that are really hard to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are hard to interact with, it's difficult if you're, it would be difficult to lead because if you feel like they just don't like you, they don't like me. And so my interaction with them is going to be more defensive. It's going to be more of, they don't understand me. But if you truly understood these 4 areas and realize then, okay, well, I have to approach them differently. It's not that they don't like me. It's just that our personalities are kind of butting heads or clashing. And instead of it allowing that just to butt heads and feel like it's a clash every time or a conflict every time we interact, it's like, well, wait a second, what can I do to lead here in a way to where my interaction with them is based upon how they're wired?
Right.
And so learning how to, we're not trying to create transactional interactions here where it's just everything's a transaction and, I'm immediately labeling people and being like, oh, you're a D, I, S, or C. But it's more of like, how can I identify a little bit about this person in a way to where I can interact with them more effectively? And it doesn't become I like that person or I don't like that person, but it's more like, no, I need to communicate with a certain style based upon how they're wired, or at least how I'm picking up that they're wired. And I feel like there's so much value in that because a lot of relationships could go much further and become much deeper if we had this understanding, because misunderstanding is what leads to conflict, which leads to division, which leads to broken relationships.
Yeah.
And so starting with understanding then allows us to have very good, healthy relationships as opposed to broken relationships. And there's so much value in this. And, when we are immature in our leadership, an immature leader would be like, oh, they don't like me, so I don't have much hope that this relationship's going to be an effective relationship or a good, solid relationship. It's not a matter of like or not or disliking. It's a matter of just lack of understanding, misunderstanding.
Correct. No, that's absolutely true, John. And the reason being, you're absolutely right. It has to be relational. Everything we do should be relational, especially if we're Christian.
Yeah,
It
right.
should better be relational. But I want to talk about even how you're sensing at times like, oh man, I don't want to get close to this person. There's something there. And I want to talk about a way to identify for yourself. There's a fear inside of you at times. And we operate in this when it gets triggered.
Okay. See that,
And you
and I
have
think
to,
that's what I'm talking about.
you
there.
have to know your own fear triggered.
Interesting,
Now,
yeah.
it was a big revelation even for my leader, Jenny Donnelly, which I talked to her about this, right? Because I was saying, hey, because it is amazing that she says, how do I want to become better as well. And so started going over some training with her, and I went and I said, hey, as a D, because we're both Ds,
Okay.
I said, I want to know if this resonates with you, that your greatest fear is fear of rejection. I'm sorry, fear of being taken advantage of. And at the time, and this is back in May, she's like, I don't think so, Sabrina. She's like, and I said, wow. I said, well, that's really good. That's one of my biggest fears, is because I can multitask so well. And it's a gift from the Lord. So it's not Sabrina like just being big headed. It's what God's gifts for me, and how am I using them? And if I feel that I'm they're like, oh, you know what? Sabrina seems to be doing it well. Let's just give it to her. And let's give us another task and another task and another task. And it's like, wait a second. What are you guys doing? So then I have this like something, when I begin to sense that fear of being taken advantage of, I have to be leadership enough, friendship enough, relational enough to saying, I need to bring this to the table because this is how this is how I think and this is how I'm feeling. The moment I recognize that by myself, I'm not going to operate it in my non-strengths. Because if I'm not operating in my strengths as a D, I'm going to operate in my non-strengths.
Right.
I'm going to become even cold. I'm not going to be I'm not going to apologize to people. I'm going to run people over because I'm operating in that fear.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's going to bring division on any team,
yes.
and it's going to break relationships rather than build relationships. So good.
I want to go even back to that, John, because then this past Sunday, she's speaking a message. This is Jenny Donnelly. She goes, Sabrina, I got to tell you a revelation. You're right. That's a fear. She says it. This is now what, May, June, July. Like she didn't realize, like I didn't say yes to this thing that was asking me because it really stemmed from, I feel like I'm going to be taken advantage of. So sometimes you're thinking, nah, that's not me as a D. Well, think about it a little bit longer. And then there's an I. If you're operating as an I individuals are fear of rejection. So if they're feeling like rejected by conversation, by even talking to them, being talked to as friendships, they're gonna go into a mode of rejection and not talk or overly talk. Wants the actual spotlight, is going to put things aside, not get things done. Even like they're way more distracted because they're operating in this area. Then you got the S individuals. S's biggest fear is loss of security. So and even changes. They don't mind the change. They want change beforehand. So if you're telling S's to change constantly in their work area, even in their home life, like think of one of your children that maybe is an S, like, hey, we're going to go do this. Oh, you know what? I changed my mind. We're going to go do this. And they're constantly doing that. They don't know what to do. They're like, you're not making this stable. You're not, they become even resist change. So you're thinking, oh, they're just being rebellious. No, you're making it hard on them.
Okay.
Like, they're if the moment they're resisting change, I'm like, hey, that's where you begin to identify they're operating in their fear. Okay. And then you've got the conscientious people that like correctness and they're compliant. Their biggest fear is fear of criticism because they've worked so much at something that they thought they asked all the questions, or maybe they didn't ask maybe enough. So when you criticize them, they take it so personal. And so they become even bogged down. Like they will even be more vague and not ask the right questions. They're just like, well, I didn't do it right the first time. So like, So
totally.
you have to begin to identify it, one, for yourself, and then two, for those around you.
Yeah.
Like, why are you acting this way?
Right.
You hit a trigger point of them. Maybe not even intentionally.
Right.
Like as a D, I don't intentionally. I remember said a comment to one of our students, which all of our students are S's. So I identify that, oh man. So you talking about like, how do I talk to a D? I'm the opposite. How do I talk to the S's?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all feelers, like how I feel and what I feel. And I'm thinking, can't live my feelings all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But I was like, that's so wrong. And so I remember I said a comment and they were so offended. And I just thought, you got offended by that? And I thought, oh, you know what? No. And I was like, hey, I'm so sorry that offended you. And then as I talked to them, they're like, you know what, though, Sabrina, as I thought about it and as we're talking, it made me realize you're right. But I wasn't trying to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was it just happened to be a revelation for them.
Yeah.
And it could be the opposite entirely. If I say a
Right.
comment and thought, oh my gosh, I did not mean to say it like that. I'm so sorry. I then had to be mindful of how I'm coming across.
I feel like that this type of, like, Will, you mentioned the hard work. This is the hard work of actually looking at the people around you in your family,
Mm-hmm.
in your workplace, in your community, and really beginning to pay attention to how they are and how your interaction with them. You want that interaction to be excellent. You want it to be helpful, and you want it to be something that's not bringing division, but actually bringing unity. And so, learning these things about, man, when they did that, I felt this way. That doesn't necessarily make them wrong for how they did it. It makes it, but when you understand how you're wired and the way you're receiving the signals they're sending, it helps you understand, oh, wait, that's more of me and the way that I'm receiving it rather than them. They just don't understand they don't understand how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can have grace for others, but we can also, though, apply that in the opposite way. And like, oh, well, the reason they responded that way is because the fear that they have of rejection or the fear they have of criticism. It's like, I remember talking with, a certain lead carpenter. And now that I'm hearing this, I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. He would get really offended if I ever pointed out, hey, we need to adjust this we need to adjust this because it's not plumb within tolerance, or he would get super defensive because he'd been working so hard to be productive and get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would come in and be like, we'd do job walks and check things and make sure that things were, and it was just a minor detail that I'm not calling him out for making a mistake. I'm just saying, you didn't catch this and we need to circle back and get that taken care of. He'd get really offended because he thought I was telling him that he wasn't being productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realizing now that I could have approached it differently and communicated in a way to where I wasn't coming against his work, but it was more of like, hey, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I saw this, when you get a chance, put someone on that and get that taken care of. I don't know. The adjustment I could have made in my communication would have prevented that consistent source of him feeling like I was coming against his productivity when I wasn't. I was just saying, make sure this gets done. Does that make sense?
I feel like a lot of men have that.
Yeah.
Whatever that guy had. What's the letter for that?
Yeah.
Where he's like wants things. He wants his work to be appreciated, and if there's any slight adjustment,
that's a more of a conscientious person.
Okay, yeah,
and it's not even necessarily being corrected, because if you can spot that correction earlier,
mm-hmm.
they would appreciate it you faster versus waiting to the end, because I just printed out the blueprints.
Yeah,
like I just put all of this work. Do you not see how many hours I've been putting? And that's why they ask so many questions. And so it's not necessarily that you correct them. It's at the end of everything. And so, and it's, anyways, it's a conscientious person that you're referring to. And so the sooner you can tell them, probably the better. And even in just complimenting them, hey, you did an amazing job.
Yeah.
And even if you're saying, you know what, but I failed to mention. So if you then take on the responsibility as a leader that you didn't bring it, this all looks great, but I failed to mention this. So because I failed to mention this, I need to then redo this part. So especially if you take the ownership of not coming across the way that whether it's the I, whether it's the S's, they're going to honor you more for that as well. And being quick to apologize. Like,
yeah. It's interesting because the dynamic changed there when we implemented production managers who would go during the course of construction, and they would do job walks like daily.
Yeah.
And they would keep a running punch list of details that need to be taken care of. And rather than just take, like when I was doing it, it was more of like I'd have to go on site, walk the job, and then I'd have to actually meet with the lead carpenter and be like, hey, here's a list of things I just saw. And so I'm taking him away from his productivity in the moment, and his crew typically is reliant on him to, continue being very productive. But when we changed it up to where the production managers were just keeping a running list, a punch list that the guy could go and check off.
Okay.
He felt like, oh,
this is way better.
And he wasn't getting his flow interrupted every day by me coming on the job site.
Mm-hmm.
It really was a different dynamic that, looking back on, really did change that. And he actually felt like he was able to be productive in checking off the list, on the,
because they love.
Yeah. And so but paying attention to those dynamics to where it's like, hey, I don't want to cause people to operate from a place of fear when I'm interacting with them, but more of like a place of freedom, to where I'm adjusting the way I approach it to help them operate in freedom and not fear. Mm-hmm. Is that, and to me, that's like a secret weapon of leadership.
Yeah.
If you can free up the communication element there, to where it's like, I'm actually putting Will at ease rather than putting him in a defensive mode. Correct. That's definitely going to help the dynamic of any relationship that we have in our influence, whether we're leading someone who is a direct report to us, or maybe we're leading even leaders who are above us. It's like, boy, that's a valuable element of leadership for us to be able to understand that. And so learning how we're wired, learning how others are wired, and understanding the fact that people are developed in the three ways you talked about, it's hereditary, environment, and role models. And then being able to say, all right, well, here's an area where this person's probably not going to change. And then here's an area where I can encourage them in their leadership style to be adaptable and flexible and begin to grow. Is that something that certain personality types do better at than others, or the adaptable piece? Or does that make sense as far as like, if I'm going to work, if I see something in Will where it's like, man, he's really strong on the S part, but he's also very good in the I part, how am I going to, but I see an area where, man, it'd be really cool if he could really develop in here. You have to approach it from based upon how they're wired, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so is there certain approaches that a person can take to, like, for you, the fear of being taken advantage of? I'm trying to grasp what you're saying, but also how can I apply that in my relationship with Sabrina and encouraging her to grow in her leadership?
So one of the things, and before I even get to that part, I want to make sure, because you might be thinking, well, Sabrina's a woman, so she's going to be paying more attention to the details.
That could,
and they're partial, but I don't want to say 100%, because I'm a D. So, and this just happened this week. I'm on a Zoom call, and I'm trying to get some work done, and a friend's on there, and I'm asking them a question, and then I decided to ask her a coaching question. Well, it wasn't for her really to answer, but she's an I, so she started diving in and started going about like this question. And then like 2 minutes to 3 minutes later, I'm still looking, I'm thinking, hold on. She goes, yeah. So I'm like, I didn't listen to anything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I go, my eye kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I just want you to know this is not just because, well, it's easier because she's a woman. No, because I'm a D, that puts me in a certain category that I don't like just storytelling after storytelling. I mean, there's a certain amount
Small
that I
talk.
will have
Yeah.
enough energy for that.
Yeah.
Depending on the day, I have to like adapt to it. Like if I know it's a meeting all day, we're getting things done and I'm going to make sure I'm going to lock in
Mm-hmm.
for the 3 hours. But then after that, I'm like, I've tapped out. My eye is out. I'm on D mode and I'm just
Mhm.
gonna like let me just
Mhm.
refresh. And so as far as like the S individuals, like for example, again, some of our students, they're all S's. I really believe that they to empower them and to get them more into their D mode, I would put them in certain situations on purpose.
Mm.
Not enough to overwhelm them, but enough to get them on the edge that they feel that a healthy, I call it the healthy tension.
Yeah.
Right.
This is going to help you. So they're going to be on the forefront of leading certain tasks, and I'm not there, and I want to see how they're going to work through.
They're gonna have to make a decision. Yeah.
Right.
Or they're going to say, "Hey, you're going to share this. You're going to be sharing this, and so because you're sharing this, I'll help you in prepping it, but you're delivering it. I'm
Mhm.
not going to help you in that. So it's all you."
Mhm.
So, for example, we had some events, and so they had to be on the stage, and they did exceptional. Like, were they probably freaking out inside? Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But they got it done.
Yeah.
And that was their D that was having to come out more. I'm saying,
Mhm.
I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, are each one of them adaptable? Yes, depending on how you bring it across.
Yeah.
If you're forcing it, it's going to be harder. I think we probably the most forced ones are children. That you're going to force them to do, like, you're going to learn this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I think about my dad. He was very much a D. He was a truck driver. Like you
Okay.
said, your
Mhm.
dad was a truck driver. I didn't see my dad a lot.
Yeah.
So talk about environment. I didn't see my dad a lot. We got raised in church. Nonetheless, my dad was a lot really absent all the way up to my high school, to the point where he didn't even attend my graduation.
Wow.
And as a D, I'm thinking, did he not, like, I didn't
Mhm.
know it back then, but I could now put words to it. Does he not know how much I accomplished? Like, how can
Mhm.
he not be here? You know, but then at the same time, the practical side was he didn't have a mom. His mom passed away at a young age. His dad was abusive. So he pretty much had to like help raise himself and his siblings.
Right.
So then you
Wow.
have to give space for people, going back to the hereditary,
Mhm.
the role models, the environment.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this, until later. So my dad was a man of very few words, but he had a very good sense of humor with other people, but not necessarily with his own children for whatever
Mhm.
reason. I don't know. But I loved him, and he was huge about church, hard work, and providing a place of security for his family.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so I guess hopefully that answers your questions. Can people be adaptable? Yes. You have to work with them, though.
Yeah.
You can't just expect them to do it.
So growing in our awareness of who we are and how we are personally,
Mhm.
how that impacts our leadership,
Mhm.
and then also how we utilize that understanding in our relationship and connection with other people will make us, it's going to help us level up our leadership. What would be some things that you would give a guy listening to this podcast? What would be one or two things that they could take right away and begin to implement in their life that would help them grow in this area?
One, I would say identify, even based on what we shared about your own personal behavior style, know your style first.
Okay.
Mhm.
Most people think, well, how I already know myself. Actually, you don't. Now it's putting things to word like, oh, no wonder I'm like this. No wonder I got mad about this, because it's your way you're sort of wired. So I would say understand yourself first. And then the next one is a challenge or a tip would be, if you're married, identify your spouse's behavioral style and work with that. How can I become better as a husband? If you have children, how may I be better as working with my children? And I'm not talking about children that are just like in the elementary age. I'm talking about even into the high school to adulthood.
Okay.
You know, and I would say, how can I apply and identifying that and even listening back and saying, okay, what are some of the characteristics that Sabrina talked about that I can identify with my child, with my spouse, with my closest friend, if you're not married, with my, my co-partner per se, with my business partner, whatever, how can you apply it? Don't just listen to it. Because if what you put into it is what you're going to get out of this. If you make it a point that, hey, I want to become better communicating with those around me, you're going to become that much valuable to those around you. People are not going to just tolerate you. They're going to appreciate you. You're going to be thinking, man, this person has changed because you've tweaked your communication style to not have everybody conform to you, but learning to adapt to those around you. So
good.
I like this because it makes you operate, like as Christians, this makes you operate biblically.
Yes.
Like it forces you to be quick to listen, slow to speak. We're called to be led by our spirit, not by our flesh. And I think like where the first story that you started out with today, like you could see that guy just responding out of his flesh.
Yeah.
And if he would just be quick to listen, slow to speak, and be spirit led, all these concepts that we're talking about today are forcing us to be, I don't want to say forcing it because that sounds like it's forced, but we're having to operate biblically. As men and as leaders and as women. And so I think this is something really good that it forces you to take the time to listen to people and to understand how they learn, how they lead, and who they are. So,
and it is hard work. Like for me, this is harder than going out and building something with my hands. This is like, okay, I actually have to pay attention to what's going on in my life. I have to have some self-awareness so that I can begin to understand myself better. And then I also then have to begin to apply that in my leadership and work towards understanding the people around me so that I can lead them better. But the opportunities that come from that understanding and the growth that happens is right in line with what we want. As men on assignment, as leaders, we can never settle for status quo, mediocrity. We can never rest on our laurels of what we've done in the past, but we always want to be growing and improving. And so this is an area where even as Sabrina's talking, I'm like, wow, she's just like, she knows this stuff like that. I don't. I've still got to wrap my mind around some of this. And so always looking to improve, always looking to grow is a vital part and a very important trait of a strong leader. And so with that, I feel like reading is an area where we can always begin to apply. We can learn, grow, and then be able to apply what we've learned. And is there a book or something that would come to mind to you that a guy could begin this process that would be helpful for him in understanding these principles? Is there something you would recommend?
There is a book, and I can't remember the author, but there is a book called On the Disc. So you could easily start there.
Okay.
The other thing would be actually take the DISC assessment, because the assessment alone, at least not only are you learning about DISC, but then you're learning about all of you.
Right. Yeah.
And then learning the other styles within there. And then there's, you can consider them some cheat sheets in there as well. And then it helps you to, how do I apply this?
Yeah.
How do there's some action steps in the back of, like, for example, I'm going to go to my closest friends and I need you to answer some of these questions of how you see me, how I react versus how I think I react.
Yeah.
And then based on their decision, their outcome, I thought, do I want to stay the same or do I want to change?
Yeah. So it's so important because it's easy for us just to feel like, oh, well, I lead this way and I am this way based upon what we think, and it was interesting talking to my son in a recent interview I did with him about his process of becoming a Green Beret. what I didn't know before he was in that process is that you didn't progress just based upon your own performance.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the progression process is you have to pass what they call peer review. And so every time you're going through a part of the selection process, it's not just based on your performance, but it's based upon how you interacted with your team
and how they think about
So
you
and what they said about you.
Yeah.
And so there's times where what you say about another soldier will actually cause them to get kicked out of the program because they might perform, they might be a stud athlete, but they may not understand that they're a D and they're just ticking everybody else off because they're just being so direct and they don't know how to relate with other people. And so it was interesting because the process was very much not just about you and your own ability to, lead yourself and perform well, but it was about how you performed with other people.
Yeah.
And so I love what you're saying there is like, what are some questions we can begin to ask others around us and begin to say, okay, I want to have some outside perspective so that I can fill in some of those blind spots that I might have in how I view myself. There's blind spots that I would have as far as like, I remember one time my oldest daughter, Brooke, we were having a conversation and she made a statement like, well, you were always so intense and strong and you didn't smile much. And I was like, I thought I was like a fun, kind of a fun, engaging, type. But her perspective was based on my body language was that I was more intense and, and strong and stubborn and those types of things. And it grieved me as a father that I had a blind spot to where I thought, oh, I'm happy and, fun. But it wasn't her perspective because I never really looked at it through her eyes. And so it's easy for us to develop blind spots in how we look at ourselves. And so getting input and being open to input from friends and people around us has tremendous value. I love that. So we could, there's a book called On the Disc that we could read. There's online assessment, disc assessments that we can take. And then as far as like having someone who can help us through this process, investing into our leadership, I feel like that you'd be like a great resource for that. So how can people connect with you and find you for coaching in this area or getting more insight and growing in this area?
Definitely would love to share on that. And one of the things though, too, John, that I've been able, knowing this revelation, when I got into the John Maxwell team, I didn't do it because of a business at that moment. I wanted to do it because I wanted to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I began to grab, in a sense, the content and the material, and I began to do it and share it with other leaders, just as people would talk with me.
Yeah.
And then I got placed into positions and rooms and saying, hey, Sabrina, everything that you just shared, can you share it now with this team? And it made room. My gift made room for me. The Lord was just, because I was that passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want people to know, like, whatever you're passionate about, nobody has to pay you to do it.
Right.
You're going to do it. That's when you know you're
That's
passionate about something. So I am a huge passionate lover on leadership. I believe that's just a gift that God's put inside of me. And when I unlock that gift, I mean, somebody does not have to pay me to go read a book like The Coaching Habit.
Right.
What makes a better coach, or John Maxwell of the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth or whatever it may be. And so that's why I even felt compelled about learning about DISC, because I want to be a better communicator myself with and I really did it because how can I talk to my own family better? Like my biggest one is one of my closest friends, because she's an I, and I thought I'm constantly reevaluating, like, okay, how did I come across?
Okay.
How did I? And so I just want you to know it's an ongoing process. And so I'm constantly looking at this, but I offer DISC assessments even through my coaching practice. And if you want more information, you can actually just even email me at info@svleadershipsolutions.com. And I offer even courses of doing it together as a group. I like doing group DISC assessments because I put you and partner you up with somebody, because then you're accountable. Like John was saying, there's something about accountability that challenges you in a good way. Sometimes people don't feel like it's in a good way. They're just, telling me what to do, but it's to become better. And so, or I do one-on-one coaching as well. And I've done coaching, just to let you know, of those that are listening, I've done it with state agencies. I've done it with even a mayor and their whole staff back in Washington, and he was a big C. He led his team as a C, and so again, I thought that was an amazing opportunity. I've done it within churches, nonprofit organizations, other state agencies as well. So I've done a mixture, and I love about helping leaders unlock their leadership potential.
That's so
because
good.
I believe everybody's a leader to form some form of capacity of how you lead. That's differently, but you're a leader. And so how do I become better as a leader in my own self? And then again, add value to those around me.
That's so good, Sabrina.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so for our listeners out there, understand that God made you on purpose and he made you for a purpose.
That's right.
And that as men on assignment, there's two levels of assignment that we all have. One is a universal level of assignment, where it's like we're called to be leaders, husbands, fathers, men of influence, and that's a universal thing. We all carry certain levels of those assignments on our life. And then there's also a secondary assignment, which is a unique assignment, which only you can fulfill in your home, in your community, in your sphere of influence. And that when we better understand the way God made us and how he made us, we will operate more effectively in that unique assignment that he has for our lives. There's a reason why some people are pioneers and they step out in faith and they do crazy things that are really difficult and tough and take tremendous tough and gritness, because that's kind of the way God wired them to be. There's a reason why some people can go into a room and quickly have that room wrapped around their finger and just be able to make people laugh and connect with people quickly and then get right to their heart by the words they speak. It's because God wired them a certain way. God wired you a certain way, and that's what we call alignment for the assignment. And he wired you so that you could be able to do what he called you to do so effectively. And so growing in this area of understanding of how you're wired and what Sabrina is talking about with these 4 areas of our leadership influence, it's so important. So I would recommend that you do exactly what we're talking about. Begin to look at your own leadership and your own life and begin to say, how did God make me? And then begin to look at that in your life and in the life of those close to you and study this. Begin to pursue some training in this. I would say invest into Sabrina and her leadership course. Again, you can email her at info@SV, which is Sierra Victor, leadershipsolutions.com, and reach out to her and see what it would take for you to grow in your understanding of this, because each one of us want to continue to grow and improve. We want to be aligned for the assignment that God has for us, and understanding these things will definitely help us in that area. And so, Sabrina, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. Will, as always, thanks for being a part, investing your life into Mobilize Man and what God's doing in the lives of men all around us. And for our listeners out there, keep investing into your leadership. Keep growing in your understanding of what God's called you to do and how he's going to use you to do it. And as we all do that together, we're going to see the world changed because of what God's doing in us and through us. And so with that being said, until next week, stay on the path.